Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. How's it going? Welcome to episode 39 of the Hideout. Sorry there, we were just trying to get our last couple people on stage and some technical issues sorted out. But we are here now and here with an awesome panel. So thank you to everyone who has joined. We'll be having another discussion today on Web3 gaming in the metaverse, and we have a really great panel today. Very excited to have both of our guests here. As a quick introduction of myself, my name is Nick Frontera. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Apollo Entertainment and the Satoshiverse. We've been building roughly for 3 years now in the space. And what I'm going to do is I won't belabor what we're building at the Satoshiverse. I think it's exciting, and I know that you all definitely should take a look at it. But today I really want to focus on our guests. And so what I'm going to do is, if as soon as I can find the tweet I want to pin to the top of this, I will pin it. But also to our other guests, just an open invitation. If there's anything that you want to convey with the group, please feel free to pin it to the top of the space. The way that this is going to work is we'll do some quick introductions, and then our host Spencer will jump in with some individual questions and some everybody questions, and we'll just jump in and have a good time talking about Web3 and the metaverse. So I guess starting with some introductions, we have I think we have Jack here from Infinite Victory and Bitfry Studios. Jack, could you give us a quick introduction of yourself and tell us what you're building?
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, I've been in the Web 2 game industry for a career. I was 10 years at Warner Brothers working on Dungeons and Dragons Online and Lord of the Rings Online. And then I left and started a little ad agency, and then jumped on board quickly with Bitfry here. Um, we released, we were the first studio to ever get licensed to crossover athletes from all major U.S. leagues, so NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, and the women's national soccer team. So we got the rights to put those players all playing hockey. For instance, we launched Ultimate Rivals the rink and Ultimate Rivals the court. So we had them all playing basketball and hockey, and it was explosive. And you could just you could have Gronk on your hockey team, or So it was like NBA Jam meets the future. And with Infinite Victory, we're taking that same ideology of all athletes can play any sport in a futuristic digital space. And yeah, we teamed up with Immutable so that the Web3 onboarding part is seamless, easy, and we're just going to make a badass game, and we're looking forward to getting everybody's eyes on it.
That's awesome, Jack. That sounds like a really unique kind of take on things. I'm a big sports fan myself and was an IP lawyer before all this, so I can imagine what those licensing deals take, and I
It was a lot.
know that way too much firsthand. So that's probably more than half the battle right there. So really excited to see what you guys build, and really excited to have you on. So thanks for joining. And
Thanks for having me.
Jacob, my friend, how are you? How's it going over at Hyperplay? Can you tell our community and those who don't know about what you're building? People who have been on the spaces before know that we're big fans of what you guys are building. So definitely want you to give him a little bit more insight.
Oh, thank you so much. So hi, I'm Jacob with Hyperplay. We are a Web3 native game launcher that provides censorship-resistant distribution for Web3 game developers so that they're not being taxed by these Web2 monopolies like Apple or Steam. And they're also not being deplatformed for including NFTs or having Web3 features in their games. So we try to be the most Web3 native and the most developer loyal game distribution platform. We also solve a bunch of problems around the Web3 gaming experience, from the problem of being able to carry your wallet into the game and using one wallet across all the games. Hyperplay actually has an overlay that allows the player to carry their MetaMask or Wallet Connect based wallet into each game that you launch from within Hyperplay. We overlay that similar to how Steam overlays, like Steam will overlay chat windows, notifications, achievements. We have that type of stuff too, but our overlay actually allows the player to carry their Web3 wallet directly into the game and do in-game transactions without leaving the context of the game. So we've got about 47 titles in the Hyperplay store today, and we're building a community that really, comes together and grows the whole Web3 gaming category as a space together, and trying to find ways to help the developer community and to create a better experience for players.
Amazing. Well, we've spoken before, and I know that I've mentioned a couple times that we're huge fans of the types of things that you just described. The carrying the wallet into Unreal, which was a huge huge issue for us that we've been trying to solve, and so we've been testing Hyperplay internally for about a month now, and are super excited about the potential for partnerships and getting Satoshi's Legions onboarded. So we'll definitely have more news on that and excitements later time, but we wanted to make sure we got you guys out here, and so I appreciate you joining as well. Let's have Spencer. Can you introduce yourself and then start taking it away with the questions?
Sure thing. Thanks, Nick. So my name is Spencer Vogel. I've been in the Web3 space since about 2017, but working with Apollo Entertainment and the Satoshiverse more specifically for the last couple of years now. And I get to host these spaces every week. So getting to the format. So we're going to start off with a question for everyone, then get into some individual questions, and then we'll probably kind of cycle back between that a little bit. But for the group questions, I'll call on somebody to start, and then feel free after that to just jump in and keep the conversation flowing. And then I also just wanted to highlight that we're going to be doing a giveaway, as we do every week on these spaces. We're going to be giving away one of our Satoshiverse trading cards, one of our collectibles that is going to allow you to be able to actually get alpha access to play our game right now. So very exciting. So stick around for the end of the space to be able to get your chance to win that prize. So moving on to our first question here. And maybe Jacob, you could start us off with this one. What are the key benefits of integrating Web3 technology into gaming economies?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, the very first use case that they think about is ownership of game assets, and that's obviously been the most obvious and common use case that people have thought about. So a lot of us remember a decade or more ago when we played World of Warcraft that you could get banned for trading gold or for trading your character. And, we saw a lot of games where, people would play games for years, would pour their life into it. At the end of it, they wouldn't own the assets. And then, they have the fun and the experience that they have. But, if players truly owned those assets, and there was an economy around it, then maybe players would be willing to spend more time or spend more in the game itself, and that would grow the economy of the game developers. And there were a lot of challenges, especially going from like Web 1 gaming to Web 2 gaming, where people traditionally they just bought you bought the license to a game, and then there was this big growth of like the mobile games and gacha games and stuff like that. And as a result, people were playing free-to-play games that had these pay-to-win mechanics and difficulty bombs. And the game developers really don't, they don't prefer to make these types of games, but these were the games that were more profitable. And there were challenges where the business model around gaming was not sustainable and the competition in the market was pushing game developers to make games that were maybe going to be more profitable, but which players didn't really enjoy as much. And so, the idea of owning one's assets and then the game developer being able to monetize a living and growing and expanding economy in the game is a really radical shift for game development, and it solves major problems around the sustainability of game worlds. It allows developers to consistently add more content to the game world without having to worry about, like in the traditional model, you release a game and then it's done, and then you need to go and make something else. And if it succeeds or doesn't succeed, that's the life and death for your business. And so the traditional model was really hard for indie game developers. It was really risky for larger companies. And so we saw less content being created. So I think that the basics of Web3 gaming are really exciting. There's other use cases that I'm also very excited about that are beyond just the ownership aspect, like interoperable usage of assets between game worlds. The fact that your items, your NFTs, your characters, that those can persist with you across every game that you play because your wallet is interoperably shared between the games, and because the chains themselves are interoperable. That offers the possibility of not just like using an item in one game and then that game being implemented by a different game developer in the way that the game developer wants to represent that item in a different game. That's super exciting, but it also means that your reputation gets carried with you, and that you actually own your reputation. That your achievements, for example, they're not just gated to like one game platform, and then you need to only play the games that are in that platform. You actually own it in your wallet, and you can carry it interoperably across different stores, different games. And people can see your gaming reputation not just based on what you did in one game, but across the entire gaming universe. I think those are really also exciting use cases, and we'll also see like provably fair use cases where people are using zero knowledge proofs to implement the fog of war in Dark Forest, or there's just a range of things that people have started to implement where this tech can actually make games more fair and provide anti-cheat resistance, or interesting use cases where the outcomes of things in the game are actually decentralized and provably fair at the smart contract level, and where people couldn't do client side cheating. So I think we'll see a lot of things like this, and I'm super excited for them. And we want to try to further all those use cases from the Hyperplay side.
That's awesome. Yeah, Jacob, absolute pleasure to listen to you. Hyperplay looks awesome. And guys, I hope I win that Satoshiverse invite because Satoshiverse is looking sick. The coming at it from a game developer standpoint, I think our biggest way to look at this all is we like what Jacob said was spot on, and I think how AAA studios get it wrong is they try to, I mean, I don't want to say take advantage or fleece, or it's a money grab when they look at Web3, I think, so far. And so our thought is to any NFT sales to make them of value to the player so that they can build them, improve them, make them better, make them more valuable, have pride in the ownership. And this includes, for us players, now we have not announced any partnerships yet, and we won't for a while. But you can imagine a world where you own players and beef them up as you go and make them better and more valuable. And so you will have their birth IP, but as well as that, you'll have the effort that you put into it come back to you. And we are being very slow and particular to make sure that there is a reason and a usefulness for any type of Web3 NFTs that we put into the game. We don't want to sell things for just the point of selling them. Our core thought is make a fun game, make it easy to pick up, hard to master, and we're working tightly with IMX to really shape the Web3 side of this thing to make it worthwhile for players, and that that's our thought. Make a fun game, and the rest will figure itself out. And we luckily have our backbone of our previously really fun arcade style games aren't supported, aren't really available much anymore. You look at any sports games, they're all sim. They all look like the day of NHL '94 are long behind us, and I mean, there's generations that just aren't even haven't even gotten the experience of these fun and simple arcade style sports games. So we're looking forward to Gamescom and getting these in people's hands, getting our game in people's hands.
Yeah, I think these guys are spot on. I mean, I guess to add a few smaller points, but I totally agree with everything that was just said. I guess from like smaller things that I think additionally NFTs bring, I think when I got started in this space, the big thing was provable scarcity, because I got started in the art side of this space, back in 2017, and provable scarcity and authenticity I think are interesting things. And Jacob mentioned anti-cheating measures and things like duping items, which there's ways to kind of prevent that in a more centralized way, but the blockchain goes a long way in proving authenticity for assets, in-game assets, and scarcity. I mean, if you know that something is a one of one and truly is a one of one, well, that can be provably done on the blockchain in a way that it just can't on a centralized server where, for better or for worse, another one could be created with virtually identical metadata, because all of that is back-ended. So I think the kind of the common ownership, authenticity, and provable scarcity were kind of the hallmarks of the NFT art space, and I think that they're just hallmarks of NFTs in general that have various use cases in these different spaces, whether it's gaming, art, or a ton of the other things that we're going to be seeing pop up. I think that Jacob mentioned cross-platform interoperability. I'm super excited about that. We've been doing a ton of work on trying to make sure that that's possible, and create some of the rails ourselves to have partners participate in our ecosystem and do things with their NFTs. But I think that intra-platform interoperability is also pretty interesting. You look at some projects like Illuvium's a good example, and some of the stuff that we have planned for the future. It's you could have a mobile experience that ties in with a web browser experience, that ties in with a game client experience that's maybe more high fidelity, and all those experiences kind of touch a different part of the ecosystem, but they're all interconnected with the same assets. I think the ability to tap into the blockchain as an ownership layer from different places and do things like updating metadata allows you to kind of do some things. So maybe, I always kind of floated this idea as something I would love to see, but maybe you're in the game, you're playing, you're fighting through the outskirts, and you're killing bad guys with your avatar, and you're doing that on your computer. But maybe once a day, there's a little thing that if you strap on a VR headset and do some sort of Beat Saber type of activity, you get a little bonus for your strength. So kind of just, using those same NFTs as the interconnected layer, but driving different experiences as part of the same lore and ecosystem. I think that becomes really a lot more possible with NFTs and between your own platforms and outside platforms. And then, one thing that I'm excited to see, and I think, we're going to see more of from a tooling perspective, is dynamic metadata. The ability for NFTs to evolve over time, which is something, Jack mentioned. And I think in a previous Twitter space, we kind of jumped on the potential for a game like FIFA, for example. Obviously, they wouldn't do this, but because it would break their model. But I think that, companies like yours may be in a better position to do so, is having something like, for example, what if I could have gotten, a Messi NFT back when he was a Barca B player at 13, 14 years old, and over time that NFT would be limited and scarce, and the stats would be adjusted. Even something as simple as that, creating this scarcity structure. And all of a sudden games become more dynamic because in 3 or 4 years, like a keeper fantasy league, you'll be able to use those same NFTs in order to play the game. And so now you're actually watching the players in real life and saying it's like a rookie card. When you open a pack of trading cards, there's probably 50 rookie cards in there, and maybe one of them become a Hall of Famer and it's actually worth something. But you put them all in cases and you kind of hope that one hits. I think it could be the same thing with NFTs, and that's something that's super exciting for me long term, and I'm excited to see how people use it.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for the responses. So we're going to move on to some individual questions here. So the first one here is to Jack. So as you mentioned, you guys are taking a successful Web 2 mobile game and bringing it into the Web 3 space. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a look behind the curtain and kind of what that's been like to actually take a Web 2 game and bring it into Web 3, especially with Immutable. And then also, I think you got into this a little bit, but what are some of the specific improvements that you think Web 3 technology brings to the game compared to the original Web 2 version of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we launched our last game, when we launched Ultimate Rivals, we were on Apple Arcade, and so we were behind that paywall, and it was kind of hard on us as developers because we almost felt like we had, I think, like 860,000 installs, but we still we felt like if we were open to the masses that we would have just connected with so many more people, and I think when you look at these types of arcade sports games, they're just so suited for Web3. Like you look at Top Shots and how many billions of dollars they've made on selling people things that don't yet have utility. It's the future is really as we all know, is the utility. Like the idea that we can own something and it's useful in a way outside of just owning that. To be able to cross over our NFTs into different metaverses and to own them, to change them, to grow them. That's like, as a degen, that's what I want. Like, we get a love for the NFTs that we own. We get a love for the communities that we find around those, and to be able to have that kind of utility and fun with a game that really speaks to masses of people and is accessible. Like our plan, we're going PC and mobile, and our thought with the Web3 is IMX has their passport, which makes which has non-custodial wallet that is secure and easy to get into, to log into. Like I remember when I first got into NFTs, the difficulty of making a wallet, like it hurt my brain. Like I've been a tech nerd for a lifetime, and it was super overwhelming, and a lot of mistakes were made along the way, and those mistakes have cost money. Like so to have a simple way to get into Web3 without having to be a rocket scientist, and then have a game that's accessible, that's free to play anyway, whether you're playing it for Web3 or if you just want to play a game like everybody always has. If you're a Web2 player, you stay Web2 and have fun. So our whole thought of the mass adoption and the ability to reach people on both sides is what we're looking forward to. It's really exciting and awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. Really, really cool to hear your experience with all that. So next question is going to be to Jacob at Hyperplay. So one of the things that really attracted us to Hyperplay, as Nick was talking about before, is the ability to integrate Web3 functionality into gaming engines like Unreal Engine. So what do you think the future looks like for higher fidelity desktop-based Web3 games built in engines like Unreal or Unity?
Yeah, so if you look at the quality of the Web3 titles that are being built today versus even just a year ago, it's like night and day. We came from a world where almost everything was built, exclusively as web browser or WebGL products that didn't have access to a game engine. And largely people had to build in that way because that was the only place where you could use your wallet. And if you wanted any sort of in-game transactions, you were basically forced to choose. I'm either going to make a browser game so that I can integrate well with wallets, or I'm going to make a native game, and that native game is going to have no transactions in it, and there's going to be a separate website where people are going to take their wallet. Or maybe I'm going to have, maybe I'm going to have a game that has a proprietary wallet, and every new player, even if they've already onboarded into other Web3 wallets, every time a player plays a new game, they're going to onboard into another wallet. So I don't think that this model really, is really holding people back from making high fidelity, high quality games. And a lot of the games were, just like people who had experience making games had not yet come around to the idea of building Web3 games. And where we are today is we're seeing tons of high quality content being created, native games being built in Unreal or in Unity. Hyperplay is actually, we have an SDK an open source SDK that we built called Web3.Unreal that allows the player to bring on-chain assets into Unreal Engine games, and also helps the player to carry helps the player to call transactions from Hyperplay using MetaMask or Wallet Connect. directly inside their Unreal project. They don't have to be experts in how to build those integrations. And so we built all that out of the box. And we're definitely looking for others who want to be open source contributors to Web3.Unreal and to help build that out. We're also, we work a lot with other really wonderful other SDK projects that are being built, like Third Web is one of them. They, out of the box, Third Web, integrates with Hyperplay and has a bunch of out of the box features for Web3 game developers. There's also the ChainSafe Gaming SDK, which specializes in the Unity side. So if you're building a Unity project, that SDK works well. And it doesn't have a built-in Hyperplay integration yet, but we're working with them on that. So I think that the tooling and the infrastructure itself is becoming a lot better. And as a result, the quality of the Web3 game worlds that are possible to build is also growing. It's just like, like historically, a lot of the use cases that people wanted in the early days of the internet, they weren't possible to build yet. And so people imagined the internet doing all these crazy things in society. And then people thought that the internet was a bubble. And then, fast forward a decade or two later, those things do exist in the internet now. Because the tooling and infrastructure and possibility to build those businesses grew. And we're seeing a similar thing with Web3 and blockchains where people had crazy, radical, amazing ideas. A lot of the infrastructure wasn't there, but the tooling is getting there, and we're seeing huge progress being made, and we're super excited to be contributing to that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jacob. So now we're going to move on to a question for Nick, give you a chance to talk about the Satoshiverse a little bit. So in the development of Satoshiverse, we've really put a big emphasis on collaboration in developing the project. And I was wondering why you think it's so important for projects in the space in general to collaborate, and what do you think the future of collaboration looks like in this space in general?
Yeah, I think, collaboration can mean a couple different things, and I think that we've used it in a couple different ways. I think from our earliest roots, partnering with Jose Delbo for kind of the comic backed lore of our project, we were able to team up with one of the greatest illustrators in the space to create some truly unique comic assets and attract a ton of people who may not have otherwise heard of the space or of Satoshiverse to what we were building, with Jose. And I think that was special. I think that's kind of like the surface level collaboration. I think it's awesome, when we start to talk about partnerships and collaboration across IPs, in the sense that, taking assets from one place into another. And, a good example is we worked with Decentraland to help them pioneer their first linked wearables collection, which, didn't seem like a huge deal, but it was a huge step for us, and I think for them and the space, in terms of, interoperability of assets, where you could own your Legionnaire avatar, and that would mean one thing in our game, which is, a client-based game, high fidelity. But then if you jump into Decentraland without needing an extra wearable, you would or an extra NFT, you would have a custom wearable inside Decentraland automatically in your wallet that you could access, that would be related to and have a lot of the properties of that avatar NFT. So creating that, involved developing an API, doing a bunch of things on the back end, making sure that our assets were in their standards. That sort of interoperability wouldn't have been possible without a good relationship between the teams and collaboration between us. But then I think, the most meaningful steps we've taken probably over the last year on a collaborative front have been with infrastructure companies like Hyperplay, for example. We realized very early on that with our resources and what we were really good at, we weren't going to be able to solve every major issue and roadblock that is currently present in the Web3 space. So, we focused really hard on creating a game, solving some of the early issues that would prevent people from using NFTs in the game, but really focusing on game design, beautiful art, asset creation, the things that we knew well. And we relied on third parties to kind of help fill in those gaps. And so, one example is all the stuff that Hyperplay is doing, on the tooling front with the overlay, I think that's helped us solve a huge issue and is actually causing us to kind of redo a lot of the infrastructure that we originally had. If you play the game today, you'll see the kind of split infrastructure that Jacob was describing, where we had a cool experience in game, but then if you wanted to do blockchain stuff, you had to go out. And so now we're working hard to put a lot of that stuff in the game, and we're going to be using, or we've been testing hyperplay in order to do that. And we're really looking forward to the results and everything that we've been able to accomplish there. So that's been super exciting for us. Also collaboration. And I think to me, that's probably the most important part of all this is knowledge sharing and kind of just presenting a unified front for the gaming space. I think there's been a lot of negative, discussion, and people have a somewhat bad taste in their mouths, I think, about NFTs in general. And, especially being on the gaming side of things, I'm constantly getting to do this, right? Having these presentations with really, really great builders in the space. And every one of them are doing something super cool that isn't, a rug pull, that isn't just a quick cash grab with another PFP project, right? Which is, I think, what 90% of the normie space thinks what we do here is. And so I think it's so important that we're together and presenting that front and saying, look, no, here we are. It's not just us, it's them. It's everything that these great projects are doing, these awesome games, playing the games, talking about the games, not just your own stuff. And so I think collaboration is going to be key if we want to survive, because as much as I believe in the technology and the infrastructure and what it could do, I think that there are going to be certain, kind of traditional Web2 gaming institutions that don't want it to succeed because it's too disruptive to their infrastructure. And I think that, if we kind of tear each other up, I think that'll make their lives too easy, and on these Reddit boards and, all the naysayers. I think we have to kind of band together if we want this space to succeed and flourish and be what I think everyone thinks it can be.
Thank you, Nick. So I have another individual question here now for Jack. So you mentioned before that you guys are building on Immutable X. And I was wondering if you could tell us, if you're able to get into any specifics, what the experience has been like actually working with them and partnering with them. And I was also curious if you had any insight on IMX's partnership with Polygon for the immutable ZK EVM and what that might mean for the space.
Yeah, they're a horrible team. They're no fun to work with. No, they're simply amazing. The talent, the pool of talent that they have there. So many of them are from Riot Games. I consider myself an industry veteran, but when you're in the room with a lot of them, you're like, wow, these are some really talented genius people. So for us, it's been nothing but an absolute pleasure. Learning experience. They have a lot of, like, their eyes are on things that, like, it just surprises you. You're like, wow, I didn't think of that. That's genius. So whether it's their economy team, their game design team, everybody from top to bottom is just in that whole gaming studio side is just brilliant. Absolute pleasure. What was the other question? Oh, their partnership with Polygon.
ZKVM.
It's so cool. That's I think that I don't have a lot of details on that, but I know it's huge. I know I look at it like you look at these two behemoths fighting each other or battling to be the best, and when they can actually pool their resources and work together and have a partnership, I think it's great for all Web3 gamers through and through. You think like, what do you want? You want, like, easy accessibility. You want security. you want to be able to get access to your wallet with logins that like we all already know, like, and are already comfortable with, like through your social platforms. So yeah, I don't have a lot of detail on it, but I'm really excited about it, and as a fan. So
Awesome. Yeah, I when I first saw that partnership, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like they're competitors, but then you start to think about it, and you're like, wow, that actually is going to make a huge impact in the space, and it's great that they were able to set aside any potential differences to be able to make that happen.
yeah, like why battle when you can join your forces and just give everybody what they want? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's it's everything in this Web3 world is a new approach, and yeah, it's like everybody's fighting to make things the best that they can, because we are so early in this and we are on the cusp of changing the world. Um, but doing it together can is probably a lot better for everybody than doing it separately. Yeah.
Totally. So our next individual question is to Jacob. So launchers are a great way of helping gamers discover new different games and for them to grow their player base. And I was wondering, beyond listing their game on Hyperplay, what are some other things that you've seen that have helped Web3 enabled games grow their player bases?
Yeah, so I mean, I can share a little bit about what we do, um, as Hyperplay. So when the game first comes on the platform, we intentionally we do announcements for the different games. We do our best to engage our player base and our customer base. We are still getting a lot of things set up. I mean, people should know, like, we're still in alpha. We've existed for coming up on it'll be a year from our original announcement of when we announced the product in November. So we're still in early days, but we want to build an ecosystem where there's a lot more visibility to the games, a lot more discoverability. We're also working to do I can't say much yet, but I'll give you a small sneak peek. But we're doing some interesting stuff with content creators and streamers, and we're working on other on-chain aspects of representing the player's identity and reputation and things like that. So those are some basic ways that we're working to grow the category and the ecosystem. We do in-person playtesting events. We've done now, I think, it was four of them. So we do these at all of the major Web3 conferences. So our most recent one was in Paris. We rented out an entire, it's the largest internet cafe in Paris, and we had a Web3 LAN party. And so this was a time where I think we had about 600 people come through and sit down. We have over 90 gaming PCs that were preloaded with all the different games that are in Hyperplay. And people could sit down, test games, try them out, compete, get an experience for what they like, and do so in a way with their friends as a much more social experience. And so we're trying to do a lot more things like that. We're trying to build collaboration between game developers and to really foster a community where we're doing Twitter spaces like this one, or where game developers are doing collaborations with one another. We've been seeing some really exciting stuff, like, for example, in the DeFi Kingdoms world, where different third-party game developers are building on their contracts, or getting third-party Decentraland games like Ice Poker listed in Hyperplay. So we really want to kind of foster all of this and to build much more of we have to grow this space as a category. And I think that especially in bear markets when things are kind of doom and gloom for a lot of people, this is a time where when people really build and when they really show results and they really build community, those things make a huge difference. And so all of us, I couldn't have connected more with what you guys were saying around, the early days and being kind to one another and being generous and building an ecosystem where we're growing this category, where we're collaborating, where we're solving problems together. Like that's what we as a community have to embody. And I'm super excited for everything we can do to contribute to that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, totally agree. Rising tides lift all ships. It's great to see so many projects in the space that have that philosophy and really live by it. So I think we have time for one more question for the group before we choose our giveaway winner and close out the space. Nick, maybe you could start us off on this one. So how do we overcome some of the financial exclusivity in the Web3 space to make games and platforms accessible and affordable to everyone worldwide?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, right? Because the financial exclusivity, I think, was early days was a product of kind of the meta of the space, right? You were either buying something that got you membership into a super exclusive club, or you were essentially helping a project fund the development of what they were trying to build, both of which kind of as a precursor required a bigger monetary outlay, right? But I think that as more and more kind of just copycat type stuff came in, the meta quickly switched to, okay, flip this, make money, 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 money. And I think that is fine for a particular type of person who might have some disposable income and likes gambling, or likes taking risky positions and wants to do that through NFTs. But in terms of kind of a sustainable model going forward, I think that NFTs are going to just start to function as a technology that is very much back-ended. And so I think that what you're selling is no longer going to be the NFT, but the kind of utility it represents within your ecosystem, and not talking about utility in the sense of, oh, this is a piece of art, let's try to, as an artist, find some utility for a future sale. I guess I'm talking about conventional utility. If it's a gaming asset, the fun you have playing the game, right? What it means within the game. Does it give you a stat boost that's significant that makes it more fun to play the game or compete or what have you? And so I think with that,